Bar. Gosh, that music was soothing. I
Good
enjoyed
morning,
that.
Cynthia. I'm glad. I hope everybody else did too.
Good afternoon, Rhonda. I'm doing wonderfully. I'm a little bit busy, but in a good way, so not complaining, just
That's
stating.
excellent. Excellent. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Help with the Cooler with Rhonda and Cynthia. Today, we are going to talk about creating your.
How did you say it just a minute ago?
Oh,
We were going to talk about who's your target market.
there we go. I
Do
was
you
talking
know who it is, Rhonda?
the avatar. I know. I know what mine is. But
Okay,
do you know who yours is?
I do know who mine is, but let me ask you this question, and I'll ask people who are watching if you're tuned in. Um, did you know who your target market was before you really started to get hot and heavy with your internet marketing efforts?
Good question. Oh, I didn't in the well, yes, I did have in the back of my mind where I wanted to target it.
Mm-hmm.
Only I'm just getting around to starting to refine things to talk more to those particular people.
Right.
So now I'm reaching another stage in my growth to learn how to talk in a language that they understand and want to hear.
Right. Right. I was in a conversation with some other freelance writers, and these are the kinds of topics that we talk about all the time, because as writers, we always have to be thinking about our readers, which is something that we do in the marketing space all the time. But one young lady, she kind of challenged me on this point about target market, and that there can be a too soon for identifying your avatar. And the rest of us, we all kind of tackled her and we said, that's crazy. That's not, that's not what is done. That's not correct. But actually, as she talked about it more, I realized that that has been my experience as well. That it's definitely good to think about and
Yeah.
to always sort of like carry with you in your marketing journey and in your promotion journey, but it's actually something that you're not going to be starting off your business knowing 100%. You know, your David isn't going to be fully carved out before you've begun the work.
Okay. So tell me, why do you say that?
So, well, actually, after a long discussion with this person, I realized when and this is more than 10 years ago, set up a restaurant with my husband, um, I actually put him through the ringer and I said, okay, let's define like who our target customer is,
Mhm.
and of course he was like, people who want to eat, which is like everybody. And I was like, that's not enough. We need to be very specific. We need to know like what their demographic information is. Are they male, mostly female? Are they
Mhm.
city folk? Are they suburban, etc.? Are they college students? Whatever. So those kinds of things. And we did go through the exercise. We had some tough conversations, some arguments, and it was helpful for kind of like throwing out some ideas into the grab bag. However, after the first few months of going through that process, I realized, okay, well, the customers that we're actually seeing and the ones that are actually returning to us, they have different qualities than the ones that we had kind of, imagined out of thin air before we, opened the doors to the
Mhm.
public. And so, I mean, because my background is in marketing, I was definitely aware of this, and I was always kind of tweaking at the, avatar or target market, you know, in our description and in our work. But I did feel like it was easier for me to imagine, say, an actual customer that I was writing, say, an email outreach for to a very specific person that I knew came to our restaurant twice a week, versus, you know, somebody named, I don't know, Tommy, college student, who, you know, like we imagined a few months back would be somebody who would come regularly.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, were you focused in on, so let me ask you, and I'll take a step back. I was recently informed that I've got white hair, you have dark brown hair, and that's a significant contrast in that we would be speaking to different audiences. And I disagreed because we think alike, in spite of age, the age difference. We think alike. We can bat ideas off of each other. We can collaborate, and it sparks some creativity too. So I'm still having trouble getting a handle on how, just because I have white hair and I'm a little bit older, why would that speak to a different age group? I mean, you're not 25 years old. You know what I mean?
No. Thank God.
I probably am not talking to that audience anyway, just because of life experience.
Right. Well, I'm not exactly sure what your question is, but one of the things that did kind of come to mind is we're definitely not, say, competing for the same set of ears or for the same set of eyeballs. But I do think that the fact that our values are complementary, that we're also not like that one of us isn't necessarily repelling the audience of the other either.
That's what my perception was.
Right. So, I mean, my husband and I, when we opened a restaurant, we're very different as well. I mean, some of you might have seen us when we were doing lives about a year ago now, you know, and he is also white haired, and he's straight haired, and I'm curly haired. My complexion is a little bit darker. So, you know, on the face of it, we would definitely appeal to very different audiences. And when we were running that restaurant in Atlanta, Georgia, you know, for all intents and purposes, you would think that we attracted a very, that our audiences would actually, that there would be conflict in terms of like the kinds of messaging. But actually, I feel like we met a lot of people. They might not have looked like us in any way, but they did share a lot of the same values. We did have a lot of couples who came, and some of them weren't even heterosexual couples, but they understood like how we rolled and, you know, what mattered to us. And they aligned with that value system. And that definitely was a lot more meaningful, even as I was writing my marketing content, than if I had been imagining, okay, well, you know, Tommy so-and-so needs a place to take his girlfriends out to dinner to. So I don't know. I think it actually helped to bring a little bit of authenticity, to stay open-minded about who your target market could really be. And to kind of, to be ready to, I guess that's the biggest message, is be ready to flex your avatar based on the consumers that you're starting to attract, and based on the people that you're actually engaging with. Yeah. So it's not something you want to do in a vacuum for sure.
No. No, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So, uh, what what question you had already covered some of the questions like demographics, the
Hmm.
city, rural. Now the online world's completely different.
Right.
So, what would you suggest as a target questions to ask yourself about creating your avatar for the online world?
Hmm. Well, obviously, I think language is probably the first way to go. So I mean, if you're planning to do your marketing in several languages, that's wonderful. But if you're doing it all in English, then definitely when you consider geographies, consider those geographies: the United States, Australia, the UK, and other English-speaking geographies. So that would be sort of like at the very high level. Gender
Mm-hmm.
is easy, but it can be a bit of a trap. So I think it would really, I think I tend to skip now gender, and I also tend to skip age brackets. And I do. Um, just because I think values and like let's say external motivations is a bit more meaningful to me than to say like they're between 25 and 35 or 25 and 45. Like I, for instance, feel like that data is meaningless to me, whereas what's more meaningful is maybe it's a person who's in a place in their career where they've gained a certain level of mastery over their
Mm-hmm.
craft, and they have made certain life decisions that include perhaps not having children, which is my case, and that some of those, like maybe that their craft is something that motivates them, and that building on that career and professional basis is something that's motivating to them. So continued learning might be more interesting than, say, I don't know, the kinds of decisions that you make if you have children, like, investing in XYZ for university versus investing in something else for your retirement home, or your
Mm-hmm.
retirement location. Um, so those kinds of values to me feel a bit more meaningful. Yeah, so that's I kind of tend to skip gender and age, to be honest.
Do you think that values are different among the different age groups?
Well, for instance, I brought up the topic of children. Like, I have heard among a lot of my peers, women in my age group who have children ranging in age from about 4 to nearly 20,
Mm-hmm.
that they are very interested in leaving a legacy to carry on their name, or their they see their future in their children and in their children's children, whereas like that's just not how I approach my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they definitely perceive me to be, say, more free to do
Mm-hmm.
certain things. And sometimes I think that is the perception that I give off, but actually, in many ways, um, the kinds of things that hold me back are just different from the kinds of things that would hold a mother back. Like, one of my
Right.
friends, she always says to me, like, "Oh, well, you can do that because you don't have children." And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
but I still, I can't do that. Like, I can't just pick up and, move. Like, I actually have to do the thinking and the, taking the risk thing as well,
Yes.
so, but our concerns are motivated by different external things, and it's definitely not age or gender.
Now I can connect from that perspective when I put myself in the position of being the child, because I don't have children either.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to come from the perspective of being the child and what was going through my head when I was 8 years old or 10 or 15.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, it never occurred to me at those ages about any time constraints.
Yeah.
Except the sun went down too early always.
Yes. Yes. I love to play.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
those are, I think they call those psychographics.
Ah.
So those are the types of things that motivate your audience. I do like to niche down in my thinking. So I do tend to think about people who share characteristics that I have, or
Mm-hmm.
characteristics in my life, not necessarily physical characteristics, like married or unmarried, doesn't have children, when they think about their retirement, actually, like, I'm already thinking about my retirement and what that means. Like, it means I could live in this place, that place, or that place, but where would that place be? Whereas, like, somebody with children would think along the lines of, like, well, I need to make sure that they can go to college. I need to make sure that I'll be close or nearby to them, after they leave college. Things like that. Hey, Jason.
There he is. Hey,
Welcome.
Jason.
I almost want to, like, have you join and ask you, like, what you think about when you start working on your target market.
Well, we can invite him in if he'd like to come.
If he'd like to come, it would be
Would
lovely to have a
Would you like to?
surprise
Yeah.
celebrity guest.
Would you like to join us, Jason, and share your perspective on that issue?
Yes, I hope so.
Well, I'll send you the link so you can join us. Meanwhile, continue, please, while I do my little technology thing
Your
over
technology
here.
thing. Yeah, I don't know how I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm not a multitasking mind.
I'm not either. That's why I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, he writes, starting with the who is of paramount importance.
Yeah.
So which who do you start with, Jason? I was just blabbing about how I really kind of focus on me. And I kind of actually focus mostly on my values, or those motivators. And those motivators, whether they're external or, the things in my life that kind of motivate me to understand what my next step would be. So the who that I think about is actually kind of inspired by me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be female. It doesn't mean that they have to be of a dark complexion. Age isn't really an issue for me either. I feel like on the values level, I connect with a wide range of different people. And obviously, if those people don't connect with me, then,
right,
it is what it is. Like, and I guess that's where I was headed with niching down too. It's that, like, be aware that you're not going to appeal to everybody. You're not going to, like, some people, they'll be like, she's nice enough, but I just don't get her. Like, there's nothing there. And that's fine. Like, you're not supposed to connect with every person on the planet. That's too much work.
I know.
But yeah, I think you really want to be able to connect with that small cadre of people that you do connect with, and that would be that is the ideal situation.
Yeah, and like I decided that my focus is going to be with like baby boomers,
Oh.
the 50
Mm-hmm.
age, roughly age 50 and up,
Mm-hmm.
because we have some common experiences, like we were born not too long after World War II ended,
Yep.
and we have a shared experience of grade school uh, bomb threat exercises
For
where,
example, yeah. Mm-hmm.
for example, that alarm would go off and then we would have to seek the protection and protect ourselves as we were taught, just in
Mm-hmm.
case that did happen. That was a terror. That was a huge fear back then, that the United States would be attacked directly, and there were a lot of concerns, and fortunately, none of them came to fruition. Um, but
That's very fortunate. Jason
yeah,
piped in with a comment and he says, I think it can be fine to start with yourself, as like attracts like. And the reality is that you can't be all things to all men in this sense. And that's
that's right.
1,000% true. Even among, in your case, Rhonda, the other baby boomers. I mean,
Right.
among the baby boomer generation is actually quite a large span of time. I think it goes from 44 to about 64. I might be wrong.
Roughly, yes.
That's like 20 years, and it's 20 years of drastic change. I mean, you have some guys who just came back from Europe, defending freedom for Europeans. In the Second World War, you have some guys who ended up going to the Korean War, as well as the Vietnam War. I mean, those are like a range of experiences. And then, add into the mix the advent of the pill and various other hallucinogenics. And I mean, the baby boomers were actually extremely creative throughout those decades.
Yeah.
And so there are several, you can already see like that even among the baby boomer generation, there will be different values that
Yes.
guide a person's decision making.
Right. Right. Like people now who all these years have depended on pensions, and these companies decided, well, I'm just taking that pension away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Social Security is another thing. They keep
Mm-hmm.
uh, borrowing from Social Security, which is
Mm-hmm.
going to affect the lifestyles, and has affected. So there are so many different issues and controversy that goes along with every one of
Right. And
them.
now going back to, let's say, our programming and what we're talking about today, I don't really see a conflict. I mean, at the end of the day, the things that you know about and that you're experiencing will appeal to a certain audience, and the
Right,
things that I'm going through appeal to a different audience.
right.
But the values aren't clashing.
No, not at all. So I guess I'll have to, ask the person that brought that up to me to clarify what they mean by that. Um, because to me, in today's world, and my experience is that we've become, in many respects, ageless.
Mm-hmm.
And that value connection is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And, like attracts like. And if you have values about wanting to do good in the world, help people out of their financial straits,
Mm-hmm.
and get with a good support system, I don't understand how there's a conflict if there's not when it comes to values, unless you don't believe in all that is good, if you will.
Right. And again, you're not going to appeal to every single
No.
person on the planet, even among those whose values you do share. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't go to church, but I know that if I were to go to church, I wouldn't get along with all of the other parishioners there, or they wouldn't necessarily like jive with me. Some people would just be like, yeah, she's fine, but
Yeah, it's a small reflection of the general world at large, actually. Yeah,
basically, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And,
yeah,
and I guess that actually this ties in really well with what we talked about a couple weeks back with Jason, Crystal, and April.
yes.
Oh, I can't
Oh,
believe I
yeah,
wrote their name. Because, they're building a team, and now they do not share any kind of demographic or I don't even think they share psychographic qualities, but I do think they share certain values, and
yeah,
that's the basis upon which that they can form their team. And each person brings a certain strength to the team. Like clearly April, is that her name? Yeah, April, she's the question asker of the world, and which is
yeah,
great because the answers that she attracts by doing that will help the rest of the team to grow because she'll bring those things. Yeah, we're a mixed bunch for sure. And she'll bring those learnings to the team, which will strengthen everybody individually.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean her questions won't clash with the fact that maybe somebody else might have already formed a perspective or an opinion.
right.
So, yeah.
It's 10 o'clock already.
Is it really?
It's 10
Yeah,
o'clock.
fun.
So how would you summarize today?
So I would summarize by saying that go ahead if you want to with the exercise of developing an avatar. But don't fret if you feel like you haven't carved out the perfect avatar. Wait until you start seeing your first customers, until you start relating with your first customers and realizing, okay, my avatar doesn't have to be carved in stone. This is going to be a growing dynamic being that I'm going to keep working on and sculpting around until, I feel good about the avatar that I've created. So it can be a little bit too soon to fret about the avatar, I think.
There you go. Thank you for joining us at Help at the Cooler with Rhonda and Cynthia.
Thank
Feel
you,
free to.
Jason, for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Jason. For always appreciate your input.
Yes, we do.
And we're glad you're feeling better too. Bye bye.
Ciao. See you next week. Thursdays, 9:30 to 10.